related to Google. So Google Maps, and first of all, Google Maps is a phenomenal product. I used it to get from Whitefield to Kengeri. I didn't imagine this would happen 10 years back. I didn't know Google thought Bangalore, but it's done it. But what they did was, as if you observe the evolution of Google Maps, they have gone more and more granular. They have street view in many cities. You can actually click and look inside buildings, inside malls. They've gone to that extent, right? So one of the things they wanted to do in France was actually map every door number in every street. And this is a very complex problem for a computer. Because for a human being, you look at a street, there are say 20 doors, each door is of a different size, shape, color. The way the street number is written is probably different. For the human being, it's very obvious. With different fonts, somebody writes it horizontally, someone writes it vertically, someone uses creative graphics, but you can figure out what a door number is. How does a computer do that, right? So they came up with hundreds of samples of pictures, and they got people to actually circle the door number on the picture and actually interpret what that door number is. And they fed it into a machine learning algorithm which basically learned how humans interpret a door number. So it did that, and then what happened was, in the matter of 1 hour, it mapped the whole of France. So a task that would have taken an army of people months of effort was done by 1 hour by a Google computer. So what does it mean for jobs, right? A lot of jobs will be at stake if Google and other companies come up with these machine learning algorithms. So this is the first part of what I want to tell you, that there is disruptive technology out there which is going to threaten all of us. Let's look at what does it mean for your careers. Yes, this is all high-sounding stuff, but what does it mean for your careers? And in the last 5, 10, 15 years, saw so much change, and we are seeing an accelerating rate of change, because what Google achieved in terms of adoption and penetration in 15 years, Facebook did in 10 years, WhatsApp is doing in 5 years. What will the next 30 years look like? You will probably, if I were to speculate, you will see at a minimum, I would say 2 Google revolutions, 3 Facebook revolutions, and 6 or 7 WhatsApp revolutions. So the workforce you enter is going to be very different from the workforce you exit when you retire. Are you prepared for that change? I mean, I am not, to be honest, but I have less of a runway. I will retire before you guys, so I feel relatively safer. But you have to think about it. And it's scary. It's scary. How many of you are confused? How many of you would use the word confused when you hear all this? It's actually good, because I am confused. And to give you a quote by Tom Peters, management guru, he says that if you're not confused at what's happening, you're not paying attention. So confused is actually a good place to be, because at least you're thinking of all these changes, thinking of how you can protect yourself from these changes. So I feel that there is a lot of change that's going to come, that's going to impact the careers of your generation, which you then need to find ways to actually future-proof yourself. So that leads me to my third part of what I want to tell you is, how do you future-proof yourself, right? And there are no simple answers. I feel that, on my personal view, that 2 categories of people are safe. If you are that brilliant geek who can come up with tomorrow's next generation technology, robotics, artificial intelligence, computational biology, whatever, then you are safe. Or if you are that capitalist who can fund that geek who comes up with those technologies, you are safe. If like me or neither, I am not that brilliant geek, I don't have the money to be that capitalist, you really have to think about how do you future-proof yourself. And I've done quite a bit of thinking on this topic because it's also a question of what do I tell my children, how do I prepare my children to be future-proof, what type of an education do they need to have. And I have come up with some 4 things actually, which I feel that if you focus on, you will be relatively better off compared to others in terms of future-proofing. And I think before I get there, I think fundamentally what this means is that you have to recognize that the computer is always going to be better at you at certain things. If you try to compete head-on with the software, you're going to die. I mean, figuratively. So the way to actually deal with this is to change the game. What can you do which an algorithm can never do? And that's the question I've been asking myself. What is it that we as humans are able to uniquely do, our brains are able to do, which the computer can never do? And this actually deals with EQ. If you are going to play purely on IQ, the Google computer will beat you. What you do in 1 year, it does in 1 hour. So unless you are that genius who can come up with the next generation technology, IQ is not the dimension to play on. So EQ is the dimension to play on. Because I don't think a computer will ever understand relationships, will ever understand empathy. And these things are very important in life. I have 17 years of working has taught me that this is all much more important. I've said in Dr. Umar that I never paid attention to my HR classes in MBA. In organizational behavior, I was probably sleeping in the class. But today, every day is a case study, OB case study in my school, in my office. So I just wish I had paid attention to all that, because I was good at the quant stuff, the economics and all that, and I was cracking all that. That's what I paid attention to. All that is important. But I think as we go forward, the emotional, the EQ part actually becomes more important. So in terms of specifics, I have 4 tips for you. The first is, I would say, develop foundational skills, and a couple of them that I can think of. Creative problem solving and communication, interpersonal relationship as the second category. Creative problem solving, I don't think, at least I don't envisage computers getting there, because it's about thinking out of the box. The computer is a box, it can't think out of the box. So that's where I feel humans will always have an advantage. If you can think laterally, if you can think creatively, if you are in professions that demand creativity, I feel that you are relatively safe. The second part is the relationship and communication and interpersonal skills. And I'll give you an example. Suppose there's a product you want to buy and 2 people have the same product, exact same product. Person A is willing to sell it to you at a discount, but person B is a friend of yours. The algorithm will always tell you to buy from person A, because it doesn't understand relationships. But invariably in life you will buy from person B. And it may not make sense from an economic perspective, or it could in the long run, whatever. But because there are attributes, economists call it utility maximizing behavior. That's what human beings are supposedly rational man is wired for. But what economists ignore is that utility is not just dollars. That utility could be softer things like happiness, relationship and all that. So that's what human beings do. We try to maximize utility, but that broad definition of utility is much broader than money. That part can never be codified into a computer, into an algorithm. So as long as you're strong in building relationships, interpersonal skills, communication, I think those are foundational skills I would actually encourage you to do. So that's number 1, foundational skills. The second part is, I would say, exhibit winning behavioral attitudes. And I have broadly 2 things there actually, adaptability and humility. Adaptability, almost in a Darwinian sense of the term, because there is so much change happening, only the fittest are going to survive. So you have the employees who will survive are the ones who are going to be ready to unlearn what they learn new things and be ready to relearn again. If you are not, you are going to be left behind by software. So adaptability is number 1. Humility is actually related. You would think, well, what's the connection? If you think you know everything, you will never learn something new. And this is what has happened. Many companies have gone bust because they thought they were the best in what they did. But you could be a great retailer, but suddenly an Amazon comes into the business and kills you with software. Right? So you have to be humble enough to realize you don't know everything, and humble enough to realize you need to know more things. And that's what is going to make you more adaptable. So I think these are the winning behavioral attributes that I would hope you can exhibit in the workplace. But is that enough? If you have the foundational skills and if you have the right behaviors, is that enough? I don't think so, because I don't think opportunities are going to land in the lab. You have to create opportunities. So that's my third advice, that you have to create opportunities, and the way you do this is by 2 things: building a network and showing initiative. And this nobody taught me when I was in business school, how important networking is. When I look back, I realized I was fairly good at it. but almost at a subconscious level. I never consciously did that. But now I feel that it's important because how do you differentiate yourself from the crowd, right? And like I said, relationships always matter. You may be just as qualified as somebody, or someone might be more qualified than you, but they may give you that opportunity because you've managed to build a relationship. So don't forget that this group, this network is going to be very useful to you, but it's not just this network. Networks grow in a geometric progression. You know 10 people, who know 10 people, and then that's how it multiplies. So the power of the network is going to be very useful to you. And show initiative, whatever company or firm you're joining, raise your hands for new things. Try to do things outside your comfort zone. Learn new things. If there's a new exciting project that comes, be the first to raise your hands. Because you never know, that skill might be important for tomorrow, even if it's not required for today. So that's the third thing I would say, create the opportunities. And finally, the fourth advice, and this is difficult, I feel this is the holy grail. Hone your intuition. My personal view is that the human brain is such a fascinating machine. The type of intuitive capabilities we have, I personally don't think it can ever get completely replicated in a machine. And I think if you can hone your intuition, which is not easy. Intuition means many things. It could be, for example, your ability to connect dots and see patterns where it's not very obvious. Your ability to zoom in and zoom out. And this is very important, Given all this change that's happening, you should be able to zoom out and look at it from a 30,000 feet and say, how are the next 2-3 years going to look like? Or the next 10 years going to look like? But if you get bogged down by that future, you can never perform in the today's world. So I feel, my advice is be like a camera, an SLR camera which can zoom in and zoom out. And that's something very difficult for a machine to do. Because you prescribe the boundaries, it can either be zoomed in or zoomed out. That ability to zoom in and zoom out and connect the dots is, I think, uniquely human. And that is the type of intuition I would hope you hone. It takes time, it comes with experience, but I think consciously try to improve your intuition. Because I feel that that's what will take you to the higher ground when the tsunami of disruption hits. So I'm just going to end with just summarizing what I said. Number one, like I said, I see a huge wave of disruption coming. Secondly, I think it's going to have a direct impact on the careers of all of us here, if I look at a 30-year horizon. And thirdly, try to future-proof yourself, looking at the foundational skills, the behavioral attributes, network to create opportunities, and ultimately try to hone your intuition. I think that's what is going to really differentiate you. So I think those are my words. I don't know if this was as interesting as you thought it would be, but I thought, I don't know if folks are completely sleeping or they're just not reacting, but hopefully this was not that boring. But keep this advice in mind. But like I said, when you go there, do your best. Do what you're asked to do, but always keep this in the back of your mind, because this is not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. But be prepared for that change. With that, I just want to take the opportunity to again thank the faculty for having me here, and wish you all the best as you begin your career.